First-person shooters are one of the biggest genres in gaming, originally popularized by games like Doom, Wolfenstein 3D, Quake, and Unreal. The market is now dominated by games like Overwatch, Call of Duty, and Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Now, it can be pretty tough to get a new game into this heavily contended market, but that's not to say that it's impossible. However, some of these games that were supposed to break out into the market just weren't able to make it happen, despite all of the hype surrounding them. Welcome everybody to It's All Viral. Nemo here, and today we're going to be counting down 10 first-person shooter games that were overhyped and failed. Guys, before we get started with this video, do us a favor and turn your post notifications on. It's super easy. All you have to do is click the bell, check the box, and you'll have every single It's All Viral video at your fingertips as soon as they go live. Now, starting this list off at the number 10 spot is Evolve, an online FPS with a very unique concept. A group of players would take control of hunters with high-tech weaponry and are tasked with hunting down and killing one player-controlled monster who was trying to get big and strong enough to either eliminate the hunters or run out the game clock, creating a massive game of cat and mouse with constant changes in control and domination. However, the problems arose when it was revealed that this was the only way to play the game. Evolve was a full-price $60 game that really only had one way to play, which quickly drove people away from it. Then even more people were driven away from the game once the developers started rolling out some cosmetic DLC and extra monsters for ridiculous prices, as you would have to throw down an extra $15 for each additional monster and spend over $200 to get all of the gun camos. If you're gonna put out an overpriced DLC in your game, at least give the players a full and complete experience first. Number 9, Goldeneye Rogue Agent. One of the most legendary shooters of all time is Goldeneye, released for the Nintendo 64. This game was very important to the FPS genre, as it proved there was a market for console FPS games in local split-screen multiplayer. EA wanted to continue the first game's legacy with a sequel called Goldeneye Rogue Agent, and it was released in 2004. Now, the hype was extremely high for this game, as is always whenever a legendary game gets a continuation, but all of that quickly died down when it was released. As it turns out, the game actually had nothing to do with the first Goldeneye game, and the term Goldeneye was just a nickname for the main character, and EA used this as an intentional misdirection to get people to associate this piece of crap with the extremely successful Goldeneye game in the past. The gameplay was hot garbage at best, and it was obviously just an attempt to bank off of the first game's legacy. Number 8, 007 Legends. Speaking of terrible games in the 007 universe, 007 Legends is one of the most recent games in that canon, and it's perhaps the worst of them all. Released in 2012, this game was supposed to be the definitive Bond experience, containing campaigns and missions from various Bond films and a huge multiplayer that would bring the awesomeness of Goldeneye into the modern era. However, the game itself seemed to be too much for the developer Eurocom to handle. 007 Legends was a financial and critical flop due to how bad the level design was, the planned multiplayer environments, and the whole thing obviously just trying to copy Call of Duty's formula as opposed to recreate what made Bond games so great. Due to its failures, 75% of Eurocom staff was fired and the company shifted to the mobile games market. Number 7, Duke Nukem Forever. Famously in development for 15 years, Duke Nukem Forever had a pretty mixed reception leading up to its release. Some people were hyped to see if the wait was worth it, while others didn't think the game could possibly be good due to all of the waiting they already had to do. And you guys could obviously guess which people were right. Duke Nukem Forever launched in 2011 to a critical beating due to its buggy, clearly unfinished, somehow unfunny, and devoid of anything that made Duke Nukem such a great character to begin with. Not to mention, the story got a ton of negative attention thanks to its awful writing and portrayal of female characters. Personally, I would love to see another Duke Nukem game that makes up for this train wreck, but after the dent that Forever made in its franchise's name, I doubt we'll ever get one. Number 6, Brink. Developed by the Splash Damage and published by Bethesda, Brink launched in 2011 in an effort to bring some new gameplay elements and online methods of play, boasting an interesting online co-op campaign and a unique multiplayer experience. However, the game clearly wasn't ready to come out at that time that it did, and Brink has gone down as one of the biggest disappointments in recent gaming history. The servers couldn't handle the launch player base, creating a terrible experience for nearly everyone who bought a copy, as it was straight up unplayable at times. Due to financial failures, the PC version of Brink was forced into a free-to-play model in an effort to try and make some profit with it. Number 5, Lawbreakers. This game launched in summer of 2017 to one of the worst launches in recent memory. Lawbreakers was developed by Boss Keep Productions and directed by Cliff Bleszinski, one of the big guns of the gaming industry, best known for being the creator of Gears of War. Lawbreakers was a multiplayer hero-based FPS, much like Overwatch, but with a few twists to make it unique, like a darker tone and more emphasis on fast-paced, physics-based gameplay. Lawbreakers had a decent amount of hype leading up to its release, and reviews were quite positive, but for whatever reason, no one was playing it. Lawbreakers launched on Steam with 60% of their beta numbers, and the all-time peak is currently over 7,400. The game also suffered from a rocky launch on PS4, leading to the console player base being dead on arrival. Boss Key Productions have stated they're dedicated to bringing players back into Lawbreakers, but at an average daily peak of under 150 players in the last month, things aren't looking good for this hero shooter. Number 4, Aliens Colonial Marines. One of the most controversial games in the last few years, Aliens Colonial Marines had a ton of hype surrounding it leading up to the release, only to have it fall flat on its face due to Gearbox seemingly scrapping all of their previous work and slapping something together in a fraction of time that they actually needed. The E3 demos for Colonial Marines looked amazing, but when the game launched, everything we had seen was erased in order to make room for an ugly and unfun shell of its former self that would go down in history as one of the worst games of all time. Despite the somewhat fun multiplayer modes, Colonial Marines was a massive flop. I personally would like to see what Gearbox could do with a sequel to this game, given that they actually tried this time around. But since this game is universally hated, I doubt that's gonna ever happen. Number 3, Haze. Dubbed by the developers as the Halo killer for PS3, Haze was a sci-fi FPS game that was supposed to bring 360 players over to PlayStation's side. Haze unfortunately did none of that, and instead only served to show why the PS3 was getting beaten so badly by the 360 in terms of multiplayer shooters. Haze had a very strange concept, and that wasn't really a good thing. The characters were all stereotypes, the level design was awful, and the multiplayer was so painfully average that no one really cared about it just days after launch. Number 2, Titanfall. Developed by the one and only Respawn Entertainment, a game company made up of ex-Infinity Ward employees, Titanfall was supposed to be a new AAA FPS contender, looking to dethrone Call of Duty and Battlefield with a unique blend of infantry combat and giant mech battles. Titanfall launched in early 2014, and it was a ton of fun, but a series of technical issues and design flaws ended up leading to its downfall. Aside from the awful campaign that was pretty much non-existent, Titanfall was lacking private lobbies and custom matches at launch, as well as a competent anti-cheat system and stable servers. And since this game was built around the idea of always online, this made pretty much everything you did pointless if the servers were having a bad day, which was quite often. Now, Respawn was able to fix many of these issues after a short while, but by that time, it was too late and everyone had already moved on. They kept pushing forward and looked to correct their mistakes with the sequel. Number 1, Titanfall 2. Unfortunately, Titanfall 2 didn't fare well despite all of the corrections made up and critical praise. Titanfall 2 fixed everything wrong with the first game. It had a great campaign, the removal of always online, private lobbies, and custom matches, and great customization and progression. I mean, you name it, Titanfall 2 has everything. Unfortunately, due to the lack of solid marketing and the decision to launch the game in between Call of Duty and Battlefield, Titanfall 2 was yet another financial failure. This led to many calling Titanfall 2's failure an organized hit job by EA, as they bought Respawn Entertainment the following year, but that's up to you to decide. It's sad that Titanfall 2 failed financially, as it's a fantastic game and pretty much anyone will tell you that. I've played the game myself and I really love Titanfall 2. I can't believe EA screwed it up this bad. Like, no one can blame Respawn Entertainment. It was all EA's fault. Once again, they're dropping the ball like they continue to do. If you guys have not played Titanfall 2, I strongly suggest you go out and buy it, or even get EA access. Not that, you know, you should give EA money, but just try the game out, maybe rent it at Redbox or whatever. It's a great game. You'll actually enjoy it. But yeah, guys, that wraps it up with this video. A couple that we didn't mention is Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2. Both of these games were so hyped and they failed. They were dead on arrival because of EA's dumb business practices and, you know, screw loot boxes. That's all I'm gonna say, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn your post notifications on, and until next time, it's been Nemo from It's All Viral, and I will talk to you guys on the next video.